The Game Freak logo started up as normal, but it just froze there. I thought the cart was just errored or something, so I turned it off and on. The same thing happened. I tried pressing A and start over and over, and all of the buttons. Eventually the logo vanished, and there was a black screen for about 5 seconds. Suddenly, rather than going to the usual menu screen, I was already in the game in the previous save file. Which was odd, as I was expecting all of these carts to have been wiped by the poor battery. Either way, I wasn't complaining, as I would have chosen the continue option to see what the previous guy did anyway. First, I checked his trainer. His name was just... ... Didn't have much originality. I checked his profile, and apparently he had 999 hours and 99 minutes put into the game, with all 16 badges. He also had 999,999 Pokédollars, and all 251 Pokemon on the Pokédex. Seeing as he also apparently had Mew and Celebi logged, I'm guessing he either used a Game Genie or was a really hardcore Pokemon player. I checked his Pokemon to see what a badass team he had. To my surprise, all I saw was 5 unknowns and a 6th Pokemon named Hurry. Thinking that this must be some cruel joke by the person who last played the game, I decided to check the profiles of these Pokemon. As expected, they were different letters of unknown, all level 5. I identified the word spelled out to be leave. As for the 6th Pokemon, it turned out to be a Cyndaquil. The Cyndaquil looked normal, but it was level 5 with only 1 hit point left, with only 2 attacks, Leer and Flash. I don't know why they named him Hurry, but at the time, I just disregarded it. The most eerie thing was that despite my volume being at max, none of the Pokemon had said their usual cries. There was just pure silence. I was parked at what appeared to be a room inside Bellsprout Tower. However, for some reason, there were no NPCs around. The pillar in the middle didn't move at all, as if just leaning on its side. There was no music at all, and there was no exit or ladder. Or at least I thought there wasn't. Finally, I managed to find a ladder, which turned out to be behind the pillar. The screen turned black and the music finally started playing. I had a sudden chill as I recognized the melody I heard to be the theme you hear when you listen to the radio at the Alph Ruins where the unknown live. I immediately realized that it wasn't a loading transition, but rather I was in a dark room and would need to use the flash my Cyndaquil had. So I had Cyndaquil use flash, but I didn't see any message saying Hurry had used flash or anything like that. The room just became lit instantly, and I soon regretted it. The room was a chilling blood red with a linear gray path heading south. Even worse, there was no way back from where I had come from. I had no choice but to head south. It seemed like the screen was getting darker with every step I made, until I finally made it to the end. There was a sign which I read, and it cautioned me, "Turn back now." Suddenly I was asked to answer yes or no, and I chose yes. The screen went black again, making a ladder climbing sound. The unknown music stopped, and in a few seconds was replaced by the not-so-creepy Pokeflute radio music. I was in another dark room, but I held my breath and used flash again. Suddenly it said that Hurry has fainted. I checked my Pokemon quickly, but he was no longer in my party. In fact, none of my first Pokemon were in there. They were replaced with level 10 unknown. Trembling, I read the letters, and they spelled out, "He died." After having read this, the room was lit to reveal myself in a very small room that appeared to only be 4 squares in size. The walls were gray bricks, as if I was inside something that was hollowed out. Outside of the room appeared to be a bunch of graves similar to the ones at Lavender Town in Pokemon Red. That's when I checked the trainer profile, to find that the sprite of my character was missing his arms. He also appeared less smug, sad and empty in a way that I do not know how to describe. Suddenly, my character spun and did the escape rope spinning animation. Instead of flying up though, my character spun downwards slowly, as if sinking. When I landed, the color of my sprite had changed. Instead of the usual red color, he appeared completely white, including his skin. I checked his profile, and to my horror he had lost his legs, and was appearing to be crying tears of blood from his eyes. I checked my Pokemon again, and this time it contained 5 unknowns and a level 100 Celebi without a nickname. This time, the unknown spelled out the word, "dying." Then I checked Celebi. Strangely, it was a shiny Celebi, except there was only half of the sprite. One arm, one leg, one eye, and only one attack. Perish Song. The area I was in seemed to be Sprout Tower once again, although the pillar was now immobile. I walked north for what felt like forever. Eventually, I encountered some men and women standing to the side, facing the long slantish pillar in the middle. Nothing would happen when I tried to speak to them. I kept going north, until the pillar finally appeared to be chopped off, with a trainer standing at the top. I went up to him, without even pressing A, and suddenly, I was engaged in a battle. Both of us only had one Pokemon, which is weird as I had sworn that I had several unknowns in my party. My Celebi came out, conveniently with half a sprite for the back. The other trainer sent out a seemingly normal male Pikachu, except he was level 255, and his sprite seemed sad, and had tears in his eyes. Rather than being presented with the usual menu, I was only given the option to use attacks, and since Celebi only had one, I chose it. Pikachu used Curse, Celebi used Perish Song. In 3 turns, both Pokemon get knocked out. Not like I have a choice. The battle continued without me. Pikachu used Flail, which didn't do much damage despite his level. Celebi used Perish Song. Nothing happened. Pikachu used Frustration, which did a ton of damage, knocking Celebi down to less than 10 hit points. Celebi used Pain Split, which surprised me as I don't remember Celebi having that attack in the first place. And now they both had about 150 hit points apiece. Pikachu used Mean Look. Now there's no escaping. Due to the effects of Perish Song, my Celebi fainted. Except in the text it said that Celebi had died. For some reason, the Pikachu was still up even with Perish Song, and it didn't count as my loss. Pikachu used one more attack. Destiny Bond. Afterwards it said Pikachu has died. Apparently I was the winner. At that point I freaked out. The red sprite was suddenly beheaded, leaving nothing but his transparent body. The battle ended, and faded out along with the music. Now back in the overworld, I'm as transparent as the trainer I just fought. I quickly checked my profile, and all that remained was his head. The head was zoomed in, showing a black, deep void in his eyes. I checked my Pokemon, and they were all level 20 Shiny Unknown, which spelled out the letters, no more. I was back in my room in New Barktown. I walked around, and there was nothing to interact with. I had no choice but to go downstairs. I ended up in the same lower level room of my house. Everything appeared normal except my mother wasn't home. I decided to go outside. To my surprise, the door leading outside didn't work, and instead I just walked straight through it into a void of nothingness. I continued moving south to see what was going on, but my house vanished. As I entered the void, the outline of my sprite turned white to contrast its pitch-black darkness. Eventually, the void changed to a bright white area, and my sprite turned black and transparent again. I continued south without thinking of stopping at all. After what seemed like forever, I finally encountered something. It was my regular sprite, and I talked to it. He said goodbye forever. As that happened, it said that an unknown person had used Nightmare, which at that point, I would not deny that being possible. I spun slowly downward just like before, and now I was back in the small, hollowed-out room surrounded by graves from earlier. Except there was no sprite anymore. I tried to walk around, but nothing moved. I checked my trainer profile, and there was no sprite left at all. It said I had 0 badges, and all of the Johto gym leaders at the bottom were replaced with skulls. I checked my Pokemon, which were all level 25 unknown. I almost expected what came next. They spelled out a phrase that I trembled as I read. I'm dead. As soon as I went back to the overworld, the room I supposedly was in was then covered with the same blocks as the walls. It was then that I figured out exactly what that room was when the final text said rest in peace. The room was a giant grave, surrounded by other graves. My character had already been dead this entire time. He was a young trainer who, despite his efforts in collecting so many badges and attempts at becoming a Pokemon Master, was still unable to avoid the inevitable fate of death. His efforts were forgotten by the next generation. I was unable to escape from that text no matter what I pressed. I tried resetting the game and the same thing happened. at which I then finally decide to give up on that horrible nightmare. After that experience, I never look at the gimmick unknown the same way. They say that only the first generation have folktales and legends, but the second generation have shown me how unpleasant the truth can be.